to deter before this day is done. We shall be faced with an unthinkable decision.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Now that Spider-Man Brand New Day is out, the post-credit scene left a lot of questions about where Tom Holland Spider-Man was exactly and where we're going to see him next in the MCU movies, because Avengers Doomsday is the next movie later this year, so people are wondering if he is going to be in the movie. Throwing some fuel on the fire, the Russos are even the ones that were behind that Spider-Man Brand New Day post-credit scene with the Spidey tracker. He wasn't part of Chairwatch, he hasn't been featured or referenced in any way in any of the Avengers Doomsday trailers we've seen so far, even the leaked Comic-Con footage, which was different from the last official trailer Marvel released, so we will break it all down. The post-credit scene was a big clue, but you also have to look at the Marvel Studios' legal contracts with Sony for sharing Spider-Man with the MCU movies, because it says exactly how many and which movies Spider-Man is going to appear in. Normally, lawyers ruin everything, but sometimes you can actually look at these contracts and they give you some detailed information about what's actually going on. Careful for spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day if you have not seen the movie yet. The movie ends with Spider-Man reintroducing himself to Ned Leeds, revealing his name is Peter, with them doing their handshake and Ned connecting the dots from earlier that this Peter is the same Peter that MJ just said was Spider-Man after all the Legos earlier in the movie. The idea being that they'll become best friends again and Ned will eventually become his man in the chair again. I know there's still a ton of questions about the details here, really important stuff, whether or not Ned got his memories back because he has an affinity for magic. We will address that later. It's a totally different subject, MJ's memories too. Sadie Sink Jean Grey hops the bus to upstate New York to hide out until Avengers Secret Wars and the new X-Men 2028 movie when the X-Mansion shows up in Westchester. I know there's also a lot of questions as to whether or not it already secretly exists in the MCU, and Professor X of the MCU has just secretly been hiding its location from everyone using his telepathy like he did with Krakoa in the newer X-Men comics. I'm in the middle of working on a new X-Men movie video because they just started announcing the actual cast for that. Like, we found out who the new Cyclops is going to be, the new version of Jean Grey, obviously Sadie Sink, the new version of Emma Frost, Samara Weaving. There's more characters that they'll announce in the next couple of days too, so I'm just waiting for them to announce a couple more of those cast members.
To me, my X-Men.
But this is it for all the characters in Brand New Day. Like, this is taking place right before the events of Avengers Doomsday. Yelena, for example, is still hanging out in a Russian bathhouse, having all the baths. And the events of the Thunderbolts post-credit scene have not happened yet, so they haven't detected the Fantastic Four ship yet, but they do know about the incursions because she talked about the crisis in space. Those are meant to be the big potatoes that she was joking about with Peter. During the post-credit scene, Ned's Spidey tracker detects Spider-Man in his apartment in Queens, but it says location unknown, despite it detecting him in Queens in the United States. Like, why would it say location unknown when it's showing him inside Queens? This is because it's detecting Spider-Man on a different Earth that's not registered in the GPS location tracking software of the Spidey tracker. Like, we don't know where this Earth is. The location data doesn't make sense with what the Spidey tracker normally has data on in terms of GPS. This is the first clue that Spider-Man is on somebody else's Earth, and it might be Battleworld of Avengers Secret Wars. I got a lot of questions about how the Spidey tracker works exactly. It uses basic GPS location data and known sightings of Spider-Man reported by other people that use the app through the app itself. So it relies on other people using the app. They post that they saw Spider-Man somewhere around town, and if he's taking a villain down or web-slinging across the city, other people report sightings of him in the app across town, reflecting this data, so you see the dot moving around based on where everybody sees him in town. This would mean in that post-credit scene, at least one other person on this Earth is using the Spidey tracker. The movie also breaks the logic of how the Spidey tracker is supposed to work when it warps reality, the Bifrost screams across screen and outer space, and how powerful the app suddenly gets and is supposed to be, when in reality, it works just like a normal app. Like, Ned isn't like a hyper genius, he's just like a normal, very smart person that created a regular app that he put on the App Store that anybody can download and works like other apps. It's not meant to be that advanced. Marvel and Sony and the Russos are just messing with us, having fun with the bit, because the Russos also probably did this post-credit scene. They did all the recent post-credit scenes for the Marvel movies. They did the Fantastic Four post-credit scene with Dr. Doom on the sets of Avengers Doomsday, because we will go to the Fantastic Four's Baxter building during the events of Doomsday at some point. They also filmed the Thunderbolts post-credit scene on the Avengers Doomsday sets, so they probably did the same thing for the Spider-Man Brand New Day post-credit scene, and it wasn't Destin Daniel Cretton doing that Spidey Tracker post-credit scene. It was the Russos.
Location found.
But the idea in that scene is that the Bifrost and the warping of reality and the Spider-Man dot moving to a location not on the planet in the middle of space are meant to show you two versions of Spider-Man being spotted by different people, so the app is just detecting this other version in outer space, unless you want to think that the Watcher is using the Spidey Tracker and he's just detecting people all over space and time. The other way this works logically is if somebody on that spaceship where Spider-Man shows up in the middle of space is also using the Spidey Tracker and detects him, like, oh, there's a Spider-Man there, boom, put him on the Spidey Tracker. But it's another version of Spider-Man, not the same Spider-Man. And I believe the idea is that we're watching the very end of Avengers Doomsday as Doctor Doom becomes a version of God Emperor Doom from the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars run, uses all of his power to collapse the multiverse into a single battle world filled with the remnants and survivors from the multiverse and everyone who didn't die during Avengers Doomsday. So it's showing us both the very end of Avengers Doomsday and the very first moments of Avengers Secret Wars after reality warps on screen and after Battleworld comes into existence. And I think this is the first confirmation that Tom Holland Spider-Man does show up in Avengers Doomsday, but, this is the qualifier, only for a hot second at the very end of the movie or in like a post-credit scene. You have to remember that Spider-Man Brand New Day filmed at the same time Avengers Doomsday was filming, and originally, when they were filmed, Doomsday was planned to come out long before Brand New Day, and Brand New Day had always been planned and filmed to be on a version of 616 MCU Earth where Doomsday had not happened yet. Earth was still intact, and Yelena wasn't worried about the crisis in space from the Thunderbolts post-credit scene yet. So originally, Marvel was doing the same thing that they did with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Remember that movie came out right after Avengers Infinity War, the snap had happened, but the events of the movie took place before the end of Infinity War. Then at the very end of the movie, they sync things up with the actual snap itself. So the movies ended at the same time, but the movie itself, Ant-Man and the Wasp, took place earlier in the timeline. So I think this was what they were going to do with Brand New Day originally, when Doomsday was still coming out before the movie. So the Russos did that post-credit scene as a sort of stopgap measure to show the end of Avengers Doomsday and sync things up with things picking up in the first moments of Avengers Secret Wars. Which is the main reason why they couldn't use Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man as a main character during Avengers Doomsday, just because the timing didn't work out, the scheduling didn't work out. But here's the thing, Marvel does want some kind of Spider-Man in their Avengers movies. In the next piece of evidence, we'll see some references to Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Doomsday, like a short scene at the end of the movie or a post-credit scene, is the actual legal sharing contract that Marvel has with Sony for the character.
You see how this looks, right?
The president of Sony revealed that their contracts have changed and now they're shorter term, so it just encompasses one solo Spider-Man movie in a couple of big crossover movies, which are typically Avengers movies for the MCU stuff. He did say that the Sony people loved the deal and they would continue renewing their sharing deal with Marvel, but it's for much shorter terms of time than it was previously, like one big solo movie at a time and a couple crossover movies, then they renew the deal again and again and again. So Marvel is probably in the process of locking down a deal for Spider-Man 5 if they haven't already. But remember the current sharing deal that's in place right now. He has his solo movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, we just saw that, and then he has the crossover movies that Marvel is allowed to use him in. So rewind to the past, remember how Spider-Man was barely in Endgame, he just shows up for the very final battle and then Iron Man's funeral and a tag scene back at his school, just a couple minutes of footage in that movie. And I think this is what the Russos are doing again this time with Tom Holland Spider-Man in Avengers Doomsday in Secret Wars. We'll see his version at the very end of Doomsday to show the transition where reality warps and people start waking up on Battleworld, and then he's a main character again during the whole movie for Avengers Secret Wars. Also that Marvel can use Spider-Man hype to get people into the theater as much as possible because they're trying to stack the deck as much as possible in their favor so that Avengers Doomsday can earn all the money. They're pulling out every trick in their bag to try and get people to see the movie multiple times. And I think the idea is that Spider-Man fans who are just really hyped up to see his character show up will hear that he is in the movie somewhere, even if it's just the end of the movie, and still be much more excited to go see it, knowing that their favorite character is in that movie. No surprise, Marvel's doing all the Spider-Man bait to get your movie tickets for Avengers Doomsday. But here's the thing, that Marvel and Sony sharing contract also goes two ways. In exchange for the deal, in addition to Sony taking most of the theatrical profits and Marvel taking all the merchandising profits, everybody makes a lot of money. Marvel has to share at least one of its major MCU characters with Sony in their solo Spider-Man movies. Previously, this was them putting Iron Man in Homecoming, in Nick Fury in Far From Home, but in Brand New Day, Marvel lets Sony have Jean Grey, the Hulk, Yelena Belova in Punisher, a bunch of really big crossover characters. And I think Marvel gave them these extra characters because they want to use Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of Spider-Man also in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, and Sony wanted a little extra cheese, so to speak, in exchange for using more versions of Spider-Man in the MCU movies that weren't part of their original sharing contract. Like, well, we want some extra stuff now, can we give you some extra stuff in exchange for that?
What do we have here?
Reportedly, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will appear in Doomsday early in the movie, and we'll see an incursion between his world and the X-Men's world, with the X-Men fighting Tobey and his Sinister Six characters, and it'll be like the opening of Avengers Infinity War, where there's big fight and a whole bunch of characters get killed. And I think they want Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man to appear in Secret Wars. And my early theory is that he's the second Spider-Man that Ned's Spidey tracker is detecting in that post-credit scene. So the next place we'll see Tom Holland Spider-Man in the MCU is at the very end of Avengers Doomsday as he watches reality warp around him, probably doing a number on his Spidey senses. My early theory is that it will allow him to realize that Battleworld is different and reality has changed. Like, he'll know that it's different, and some characters won't know that things have changed because the way Doctor Doom's magic works differently on different people. But this is the main reason why Tom Holland wasn't in Chair Watch. He's not in the Doomsday trailers that we've seen so far, because the Russos don't want to give away the very end of the movie, and he's only in the movie for a couple minutes, and they just want people to wonder, because of the post-credit scene, if he's going to be in this next movie, and use this as like soft confirmation, like, he'll be in a little bit, so you should come see just to double check and see what he's doing. And all the Avengers Doomsday trailers and the official marketing is just focusing on the people who will be main characters during the entire movie. But this is just the beginning, it's still early days. Now that Brand New Day is out, we'll probably see more Avengers Doomsday clips and trailers through the next couple of months, and we'll learn more about Secret Wars, which is supposed to start filming pretty soon. Vision Quest is the next big Marvel show later this year. It will also take place before Avengers Doomsday, but we'll see if they include references to Doomsday by the end of it, because it would be weird if White Vision or any of those characters like Billy and Tommy, or even Scarlet Witch, don't show up by Avengers Secret Wars. There's also a lot of theories that Scarlet Witch might be one of those mysterious Lotvarian witches wearing the mask, because why would they be wearing masks if they don't want you to know who they are? Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and all your Tom Holland Spider-Man conspiracy theories. But I just did a much bigger Spider-Man Brand New Day Easter eggs video. Click here for all those, and click here for all my Avengers Doomsday Comic-Con panel videos with all that new footage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.